I don't look back. I only want to look forward because I think once you start to take that approach, it's a lot easier to see a brighter future and to be more optimistic and not dwell and feel sorry and feel regret. Someday I'm not going to be here anymore. And you're going to remember me very fondly because you're going to think about the fact that all these lessons that I taught you and the money that we're putting away is going to allow you to live your best life. And you may not have to work as long as you might have otherwise because you're learning and putting into place some really important lessons. The past is the past, and I can't change that. So let's look at making a better future. I say we have a team of capital. We have our time, our energy, our attention, and our money.
Money touches nearly every aspect of our lives, yet many of us were never taught how to relate to it. Financial well being is much more than figures in your bank account. It's about knowing what's important to you and aligning your finances with your values. In this conversation, we explore the connection between money and well being, the importance of trust and rapport with a financial advisor, and why life planning is the key to freedom at any age and stage. Today's guest, Phil Weiss, is the founder of Apprise Wealth Management, a seasoned financial professional with more than 25 years of experience in personal finance and investment management. What makes Phil's work particularly meaningful is the personal experience that shaped his mission. He witnessed firsthand how a lack of financial preparedness can add stress to already challenging life circumstances. Today, Phil is focusing on helping women facing new beginnings build financial confidence by empowering them with the knowledge and resources they need to start life after divorce, widowhood, or retirement. Whether you are just beginning your financial journey or looking to become more intentional with your resources, this episode offers practical wisdom and a refreshing perspective on what it truly means to be financially well. Let's dive in. Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well, Mama Terra's podcast. Each week, we will explore topics that impact your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health through inspiring transformation stories. Here, you will find practical guidance and actionable strategies to apply in your daily life. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, author, health coach, and speaker. I'm here to help you protect your energy, strengthen your well-being, and thrive through life's transitions. Speaking of life transitions, I would love for you to go to Amazon and check my book, Living Your Best Life in College, which I wrote as a guide for young adults transitioning from high school to college. If you are a student, a parent, a teacher, or someone who cares about well-being, this book might be a game changer. Now, let's dive in and discover all the different ways you can feel well. Vista transcende, levita. Hello, Phil.
Hi, Anna.
Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on today.
That's great. For us to start our conversation, I would like to ask you what, in this moment of your life, makes you feel well?
Oh, I feel like I'm a pretty lucky guy. So there's a number of things, but I think for me, a lot of it just centers around family and friends and being able to spend time with my family. I'll tell you that I have one of my sons had moved away for his job after he finished school, and he was three time zones away because I'm on the East Coast and he was on the West Coast, and that made it difficult for us to connect. And now he's back here. Like for instance, he's coming here this weekend, and it's so much nicer to have him back here. And there's nothing that I like better than when my family is sitting down and all the kids are there and we have good conversation around a good meal. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I hear you. That is really enjoyable. I love that too. Very nice. So tell me how this concept of feeling well or wellness has evolved throughout your life.
So I'm going to tell you kind of my story as to why I work with who I do, because it kind of all fits together.
Uh-huh.
So growing up in my house, it was the typical model that we all think of, at least at that time, where my father was responsible for the finances and my mother was responsible for taking care of my sister and I. And here's the thing, though, when it comes to managing finances, to say my father wasn't good at it is to put it mildly. We had unpaid bills, we had no savings, we had no credit. When I was old enough to drive, I remember having to go and pay utility companies, things like that, to get services turned back on because my father hadn't paid. When it was time for me to go to school, I was told, go anywhere you want. So I wanted to be a doctor, and I decided to go to Duke because I thought that's where I was going to have the best chance of going to medical school. And I was a psychology major. And after 3 years of doing a lot to stay in school, I owed them enough money that the school and I had agreed that I needed to pay back what I owed, and then I could come back and finish. So I left school, and it was a really toxic situation at home. So I ended up moving across the country to live in Tucson. And when I was ready to go back to school, I decided that I was no longer going to medical school. While my grades were good, I didn't think they were good enough. And as a psychology major, that just meant more school after I graduated, and I didn't think that made sense. So I decided I was going to study accounting. But unfortunately, Duke doesn't offer accounting degrees. So I had dual residency because had been in Arizona long enough to be resident there. I still had residency in New Jersey from my parents. And I thought I'd get a better job coming out of Rutgers and coming out of University of Arizona. So I came back home.
Hmm.
I finished school, but I will tell you that even though I paid off that debt to Duke, which I needed for them to release my transcript, I didn't have enough to finish. So I would pay for rent or tuition if I didn't have enough money with credit card checks. Like, I know that's not the best thing in the world to do, but to me, it was good debt because it was the only thing I could do to get me to where I wanted to be. And when I finished school and I had my job, I was looking and saw how much I paid in interest. I, this is too much. I don't make enough to do that. So I put in place a plan and I paid it off. But while I was doing that, when I finished school, I also had moved back home. And one day I came home and I went to get the mail. And there were these credit card bills and they had my name on them. But there was only one problem. They weren't mine. My father had
Oh,
actually forged my name to open up credit card accounts because he couldn't get credit.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. I actually got proof before I confronted him. I reached out to the card companies. One of them sent me the application. It clearly had his handwriting on it. And while all this was going on, my mother had gone back to school and she
Oh,
became an occupational therapist. And I know that the reason she did that was because she wanted to be in a position where she could be on her own. But
okay.
unfortunately, she focused so much on her business that she neglected taking care of herself. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's when we found out how bad the financial situation at home had really become because my mother asked me to help. And we found that those credit cards that when I called the companies, they took them out of my name and they put them into my father's and then he didn't pay. So they were in collection. And my parents had to sell their house because they were going to be foreclosed on because the mortgage wasn't being paid.
oh
So
my
while my
gosh.
mother's dealing with all this, yeah, they had to move.
And she
I
was
did
sick.
and she was sick. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was not the best situation, especially when you're trying to take care of yourself and recover. And unfortunately, her breast cancer ended up metastasizing to her brain, and she passed away 18 months after her diagnosis.
Oh,
So now I consider the work that I do is trying to help other women avoid the kind of things that my mother went through. And that's why I work with women facing new beginnings. And I'm also, in addition to my regular professional credentials, I'm a CPA, I'm a CFA charter holder. I also became a registered life planner. And that's something that I use to help people really identify those things to help them live their most fulfilling lives. And I went through that training myself. And so one of the things that came out of that training for me is I want to create a scholarship for women to go back to school later in life, like my mother did. And I put some money away this quarter. I'm hoping that I can figure out the exact mechanism I want to do so I can launch something in the new year so that when we get to next fall I can have somebody be the first beneficiary of the scholarship because I like to be something that ultimately gets tied to a percentage of revenues that the business earns. But going through all this, I know those things are important to me. So I talk to you about family. That's something that's real important to me, whether it's my wife and kids or my friends, like those things are really important to me. I like I want to help people. I want to establish a scholarship. That's really important to me. I love working with my clients and helping them figure out those things that are most important to them. So those are the kind of things that I think of when I look, there were times in my life that I regretted not going back to Duke and not going through what I thought my life was going to be like. But when I think about it now, like I would have never met my wife. I wouldn't have the family that I have. My life would have been so different. So yeah, I'm sad that I didn't graduate from Duke. But on the other hand, I'm very happy with where I am. And the life planning process really helped out a lot. And, I've learned over time, one thing that's really important, I was actually talking about this with a client this morning, is the idea that I don't look back. I only want to look forward because I think once you start to take that approach, it's a lot easier to see a brighter future and to be more optimistic and not dwell and feel sorry and feel regret for all those things that might have happened. And that's really one of the keys to life planning is it helps you identify things that you can do now so that you don't get to the end of life with regrets.
Yeah. And then looking back too, we understand that everything that we go through, we grow through.
Yes, that's right.
So, yeah. And the universe and God has a special way to actually guide us. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure you did exactly what was meant for you to do. Even
That's a
though, yeah, even though you think, oh, Duke, okay, no, that was not for you.
no, this is where I'm supposed to be. I mean, I started this business about 7 years ago. It's when I made it my full-time thing, and it's the happiest I've ever been with what I do professionally, and I love what I do, and I don't have any intention to stop at any point in the future because I can continue to help and I can build the scholarship, and like those are wonderful things. And why would I want to stop when I can tell you stories about the impact it's had on clients too. And if I can do that, like why wouldn't I want to keep doing it?
Yeah. Your story is so valuable to share because financial health is really a big component of our overall health and well-being. We know that. And you do have a living example of your mother, especially her not having means to leave the relationship and trying to find ways to do that. Of course, that all had an impact on her health
Hmm.
in my country, but I came from Brazil. I would say 80% of the population struggles to make ends meet. That is detrimental to their health. So, what you do is really important, especially for women in new beginnings. And I love that because it might be a new beginning because of a divorce, but it might be a new beginning because of a recovery from a disease, addiction, or a big life changing event. There's so many new beginnings in life.
Yes.
I think it's really important to have this knowledge, this financial knowledge to manage this very important part of life. Because this is what gives us peace of mind to look for other things. Even if we want to volunteer or whatever else we want to do, we have to have security, and finances are our security.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because one question I'll often ask people at some point in our relationship is what's important about money to you? And security is a common answer. But what I like is there's an evolution that takes place as we become more secure and we become more comfortable with where we are and what we can do is then it leads to freedom, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
start and so people that are further along will say freedom, but people that haven't gotten there yet, security. Not that everybody says those two things, but those are two very common answers. And I come to realize there's a continuum that happens as we go from security to freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me about your journey in your relationship with money, with all the troubles you had at the beginning and seeing your family go through that. If you are enjoying this episode, but don't yet understand the multidimensionality of health, I created a free ebook to help you. It's a simple yet insightful few page book you can read in less than 10 minutes. The ebook link is in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
Sure. So I like to think that there's two type of role models in the world, right? There's the good ones and the bad ones. And as I said up front, the one I had was a bad one, but you can still learn a lot because I learned everything not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, I remember learning little pieces from other ways, from other family that I would talk to and things like that. But it really wasn't till it was like kind of like trial by fire. Like I mentioned, when I finished I think it was my first or second year of work, and I sat there and said, "This is how much I paid in interest." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like I don't make enough to do that." Thought about it as a percentage of my income, and it was way too high. And that's when I just started to use. Fortunately, studying accounting gave me good insight into money, right? Because there's accounting is not just like writing numbers in a ledger and balancing books and things like that. There are other aspects. Like I learned some things about investing. And in college, I remember I took a course when I was at Rutgers. I had taken a course on investment management, I think it was called. And there was another course on portfolio theory that I wanted to take. And at Rutgers, the business school was new, and the business school and the economics department didn't see eye to eye. And the portfolio theory course was only offered in the economics department. And because I was in the business school, they didn't let me take it.
Mm.
And I said to my investment professor, I said, I don't think this is fair. Here I am in school. I'm trying to learn so I can get a job. And I want to take a course that I think will allow me to help take the money that I earn in that job and make more money. And they won't let me take it. And he said, You're absolutely right. So he let me take an independent study.
Oh.
But it was just, seeing some of the things that I saw at home made me realize when you get your bills, you pay them on time. I do remember when I got my first credit card, I wondered, and I never did it. I said, I know if I pay it in full, I don't pay interest. But I said, what if I shorted it like $1 or something? What would happen? But I said, I can't imagine that they'd let me get away with that. So I never did it. I just would always pay. I would pay in full when I could, right? When I was still in college, like when I was at Duke and I had a credit card, I paid it in full. But when I got in the situation at Rutgers where I needed it to help me live, then that's when I accumulated the debt. But it's just thinking about the things that happen and what their implications are. And when when my wife and I got married, I had been I started my career working for Deloitte in the tax department. And eventually I ended up specializing in international corporate tax planning. I worked for large companies, helping them with US tax implications of what they did outside the US. And the company that I was working for was taken over. And I decided to leave. And when I did, I got paid extra. And I remember I took that money and I used part of it to pay off the last of my student loan debt. Even though it was low interest, I wanted it gone. And I used the rest to buy the engagement ring for my wife. So I said it was great because I entered our relationship together without any
That
debt.
free.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's always been now the only debt we have a little bit of car debt and the mortgage. That's really it. And we've never had anything other than that.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the savings and all those things that I didn't see growing up.
Yeah. What do you think is the benefit in your life and health of having this security?
I think it frees your mind of worry. Like as you can get yourself in better financial position and you're not worried about what happens if something bad happens, right? As you build your wealth, you can protect yourself in the event. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person that's here that lost a job at some point. And that the savings that we had, that's what allowed me to start my business because I started my business from zero and have been able to grow it. So it helps to free you from worry. It helps to, when you're doing things with your family, you don't have to think about it. Your mind's not occupied. It reduces stress. It's really can make your life better because when you can be in the moment and you don't have to be worrying about all these other things. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
good for your health, both your physical and your mental health, because it allows you to do other things.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that had affected your relationship with your kids?
So I've been fortunate with my kids. I'll tell you that from when they were little, as soon as I started playing sports, I got involved and I started coaching. And I coached my kids from the time they were 5 until they were in high school in different sports, lots of different sports. So that helped our relationship. And I've shared some of the things that I went through so they understand. No, it was tough when I started my business. Since I've been married, that's been the hardest time for us financially because I didn't really have any income during that period. So we just changed how we spent money so that we didn't have to go into debt. We could still do some things as a family because I love to take family vacations and things like that. We still did that even then. We just didn't do it at the same level as we might have otherwise. But it's also helped too, because if I look at my kids, like one of my sons, when he started his first job, one morning I woke up after he got paid for the first time and he had fully funded his Roth IRA for the year. He didn't even
Whoa.
ask me. And I'm like, yes, not only did I do something right and trying to teach, but he listened.
Yeah.
And I've had other conversations with that same son about the idea. And I talk about this with my other kids too, but I just remember this particular conversation. That I said, someday I'm not going to be here anymore. And you're going to remember me very fondly because you're going to think about the fact that all these lessons that I taught you and the money that we're putting away is going to allow you to live your best life. And you may not have to work as long as you might have otherwise because you're learning and putting into place some really important lessons. So at the end of the day, while it was tough, they understood, at least I think they did. And it gives them greater insight to make them able to be in a better position financially and also help them to live a better life too at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Both situations are always good to model for our kids.
Hmm.
Like when we do have an abundance, then we can do those things. But now we have to do things differently. We'll still do, but it will be differently because of a different situation. And that's how life is, right? So
Yes,
it's a life skill to be able to adapt to different situations. And that makes everybody stronger, right?
absolutely right.
And
Yes,
when we do go through things together as a family, the bonds are even stronger because we understand the importance of helping each other and supporting each other, right?
that's right. And then even think too, when we share experiences, like I said, my kids know all these things that I went through. And I know one of my other sons one day asked, I have 4 kids, by the way, 3 boys, and my youngest is a girl. But one of them asked me, so you went through all this stuff and how did you get through it? I said, because over time, like I think I said earlier, I learned that the past is the past and I can't change that. So let's look at making a better future. And I know the other part of my story I didn't mention. So my father, after my mother passed, I wrote my father this letter and I here's all the things that I'm feeling and everything else. He was verbally abusive. It wasn't good. And I had to tell him all that. And I got this response back that I didn't care for. And I tried one more time and I told him, I'm going to always love you, but I want to love you because of who you are and not just because you're my father. And didn't really get through. And my sister and I both, we stopped talking to my father and we didn't talk to him for almost 25 years.
Mm.
And he would periodically try to reach out, but it never sounded any different. And I wasn't comfortable because I didn't want to fall into some of the same things that we went through before, nor did my sister. And then a few months before COVID started, I got this letter from my father and I read it. And it sounded different.
Hmm.
So I talked to my sister, I think now's the time. And so I responded, and it ends up that it was a Saturday or Sunday in March before COVID shut the world down. We met halfway. He was in New Jersey. I'm in Maryland. We met at a restaurant in Pennsylvania. And I brought my wife and my kids, and my sister and
And he
came with
had
her
not
kids.
never met
He had
your.
never met any of them. And we met. And then after that, we would email almost every day to each other. I used to do webinars frequently. He would get on the webinars, not because he just wanted to see what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that summer, we had him and this woman that he had lived with for a long time. They never got married because then she would get his financial issues, right? Because that didn't totally go away. But they came to our house and spent a long weekend with us. And then the next year at Thanksgiving, went to New Jersey because my wife still has family there, and we went and had breakfast with he and the woman he was with, and we reestablished a relationship to an extent. It was obviously not like it had been. And one day, my sister and he had had a disagreement about something, and he said he hoped that it didn't impact us. And I said, "Don't worry, because this issue that they had was about something in the past." As you notice, I don't bring up the past because the past is the past. And the only way, I didn't say this part to him, but in my mind, the only way that I knew that I could try to have any relationship was to not try to live in the past and not think about those things and just think about going forward.
Yeah. How is it going now?
Well, unfortunately, that next year he got COVID and he passed away.
Okay.
But and, I remember, and I spoke at his funeral, and I remember saying I never thought that I would even be at his funeral, let alone speak at it. But looking back, I'm really glad that I reconnected because it didn't leave like that void, wondering what would have happened and what would have been like. And some things that we found out after meant that he hadn't changed as much as I thought,
Mm.
but it was still the right thing to do because it just mentally, it's a much better place to be in. If he had just passed and I had never reconnected, I think I would feel a lot differently
Yeah.
about it than I do because we did.
Mm-hmm. Because the past is only in our minds. It doesn't exist anymore.
Mm,
Oh, it shaped us. Well, we grew through the things we went through, and maybe not, but we'll sometimes will. But the past is there. Nothing is going to change it.
that's
But
correct.
we can build and rewrite our stories and build a new future.
I agree
So,
completely.
yeah. And then now you carry all this knowledge working with women in new beginnings. I love the concept.
So, a funny story. I remember when I was I worked with a firm and I was identifying the niche. And before I did that, one day, one of my friends, she emailed me and said, "Phil, I think you should work with more women." I asked her why, and she told me why. And I'm like, that's really interesting because if I think of my client base, and I hadn't looked, I'm like, that's maybe a third to a half of my clients are these relationships where the woman is either on her own or she leads the relationship. Well, ended up it was higher than that.
Hmm.
And I used to call it female-led households, but that was too vague and too many people. So then I thought about trying to tie it more to my story that I told about what I went through. And it's primarily divorce, widowhood, and empty nest. I mean, retirement always falls in there, but it can really mean a lot to help people, to help these women gain more clarity about what they want to do and what comes next. And I'm going to share a little story. So there's a woman that I work with. I've been working with her for about a year and a half, 2 years, I think, when I came back from life planning training. And I got this email from her. And she said, "Phil, I've taken a leave of absence from work. I don't know what it means for our financial plan. I don't know if I'm ever going to go back, but I had to do this." I read that and I started the email. I said, "This isn't time to email. This is a time to make a phone call." So I asked her what was going on. And she told me more, and I've learned a lot more since. But I mean, the bottom line was, what was she going through? She was working in a really highly stressful job. And Her parents are divorced. Her father lives on the East Coast. She lives outside of Chicago, and her mother is in Minnesota. Her father had had a pacemaker. He's had problems. She's the caregiver for him.
Mm.
Her mother is in late stage Alzheimer's. She's the caregiver for her. She and her husband have two daughters. One of them had just gone to college and she was experiencing a lot of issues. And so she was on the phone talking to her daughter 1 till 2 in the morning, which is an ideal thing when you have a highly stressful job. Their other daughter was in high school going through the things that high school girls go through, which I saw from my daughter. It's not so easy. And she and her husband had a couple rental homes and she was the caregiver for theirs. She and her husband both had good jobs, really good jobs, but she was responsible for all the finances. He doesn't have anything to do with them. So that's a lot of stress that she was under.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her, let's work on your life plan. So she goes, okay. So we start working on it. And then I blogged on my website what my life plan is. Like if clients share with me, I'm happy to share with them. So she takes some time and she reads my life plan and she says, Phil, thank you. I've been sitting here trying to build the biggest pile of money without ever thinking about how much I needed, what it was for, or anything else. And so this is starting to do that. So we went through the life planning process. And I'll tell you, as we went through it, she did go back to work briefly, but just because she had to tie up some loose ends. And she doesn't have that job anymore. She looks like a different person. She sounds like a different person. And she's gone through a whole lot of other things since, but she's able to cope with them so much better. And a year after we did the life plan, I got another email from her. She said, so, Phil, when I was in my 20s and now she's in her early 50s, I used to go to Cubs games and I'd be sitting in the bleachers, having a few beers and seeing all these older women. They were like working as ticket takers or ushers or whatever. And she said, I want to do that someday. She goes, so I applied for a job. She goes, I go in, I'm wearing my Cubs World Series t-shirt, I'm wearing my Cubs jersey, and there's all these young kids there, and they're dressed kind of nicely. And I got the job. And she, yes. And she goes, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this, but there was a concert at Wrigley Field that summer. She said, I want to at least make it to the concert. She made it through the whole season. They had the Winter Classic hockey game in Wrigley Field last December 31st. She worked that. She's still working for the Cubs now. I got an email last night because a text from her last night because she's working. The Cubs were in the playoffs and she worked the first series and she's going to work the second one. And now, like the other things that are going on have gotten worse, right? She has a brother and her brother was diagnosed with cancer and he's now in hospice. And so now she's the caregiver for his family because his wife doesn't have any financial knowledge and they're
Oh
and
my
trying to help teach
gosh.
their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And her father may have cancer too. Like it's a lot of stuff, right? But she emailed me a couple weeks ago and she just wanted to say thank you. She goes, there's a lot more in it, but basically going through this process allowed me to have the space to deal with all these things and not have it drag me down. And thank you. I will tell you that from the time that she reached out, I knew that she didn't have to go back to work because they could have lived on one salary. They were saving the other one. So she didn't need to work. And it she goes, I'm a better wife, I'm better caregiver for my parents and my brother's family, like all these things. It gave her all the space to do that. And like the Cubs job, that's her release.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a life coaching with the financial support.
Yes.
It's what you do is like a marriage of those two things. What I think it's really wonderful because it's the perfect marriage. So you
Yes.
provide the knowledge and the support for them to build that safety net and do the life planning.
Yeah. And it's also about giving people space, right? Because I'll tell you that when I'm working with you on your life plan, I don't talk a lot. I ask you questions. I
Mm-hmm.
facilitate, but it's because it's your life. It's your plan. It's not mine. I'm not there to tell you what to do. I'm there to ask you questions and get you to think about the things to help you live that ideal life. Now that fulfilling life. That's really what I'm there for. Like I use a tool and a lot of times I'll record calls if the client's okay with it, of course. And when I'm doing a life planning meeting, I talk between 10 and 20% of the whole conversation. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. because it's the client's time to talk. I'm there to listen. And that's something else that people don't always get, right? Somebody that's willing to listen to them. And I think that really is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is what coaches do, right? So
Yes,
we are there for them to listen and to ask questions,
it's exactly right.
to help them find the answers that are within them.
Yes, I'll tell you, there's times when I'm going through the life planning process when after we create a vision from the questions that I ask at the beginning, then I ask them what can get in the way. And sometimes when I'm asking them, I almost feel like I can see the wheels spinning in their head as they're sitting there trying to think about about whatever it is that can get in the way. And then after we do that, we talk through what can they do about it and how can they overcome that obstacle. And if you really want to do it, you can.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. The life planning approach that you use is the pathway to informed success you have on your website.
So it's part of that,
Part of
right? So
that.
like the pathway to informed success, it starts with life planning because to me, your life plan informs your financial plan.
Uh-huh.
So we want to go through the life planning process, which has an acronym, which is EVOKE, which is E is for exploration, V is for vision, O is for obstacles, and then those things that can get away. Then K is where knowledge as a financial planner and advisor starts to come into play. And then E is now let's go out and experience it. Let's go do it. But we start this, so we do that life plan. And then as we get to the financial plan, right, there's all these things about goals. Well, goals, we don't really know what's going to happen. And we're not sure. Like goals sometimes are guesses, sometimes goals are possibilities. But the thing is, when we've done the life plan, we can fill it your financial plan with some things that really have meaning to you, that you really want to get done. Because if you can get those things done, everything else doesn't matter as much. And so we do that first layer is the life plan, and then we get up to building the financial plan, which can include helping you with your investing, helping you put together your financial plan. And then we get into the ongoing thing where I'm there to we can refresh your life plan periodically because that can change too. But
Mm-hmm.
also there you have questions about your finances. I'm there to help. And I'm also there to see, are we on track with what we talked about? And if not, why not? Because maybe we have to change something because things change. But so it becomes an ongoing relationship. But that's really the pathway. The life planning is the foundation, I guess, would be the best way to put it. And then we build from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is awesome. And then you work with 100% women now, or you do have still some male clients?
I still have some male clients. And sometimes when I say I work with women, it's like the situation that I just described, right? Where she's married, but she's the one that's responsible for the finances. I have a number, typically not every married couple that I work with, and some were before I identify the niche and we have a good relationship, so we'll continue to work together. And sometimes you might have a situation where the husband has always been doing this and he wants to make sure that there's somebody that can take care of it if he's not around.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important that obviously I have a number of women that are by themselves too, but I think it's just really important when you work with a couple that you pay attention to both because this statistics tell us that 70% of women leave their advisor when their husband passes away. And why is that? It's probably because he didn't take the time to pay attention to her. He didn't really care about her opinion. He talked to the guy about whatever he wanted to talk about and ignored her. And so she doesn't even know who this person is. So there
Mm-hmm.
are men that are like, they would like to have somebody that they feel comfortable because the average man doesn't live as long as the average woman, and the average husband is older than his wife. So when you think about it, the odds that she's going to be alone at some point and she may not have that same knowledge and understanding, but my firm is called Apprise for a reason because Apprise means to inform. So I love to help people understand. And so that's one of the things I do is I want to get to know all my clients, and the life planning really helps. And as a financial planner, I'm supposed to be a fiduciary, which
Mm-hmm.
means I'm supposed to make sure I put my client's best interest ahead of my own. And if I've worked with you on your life plan, I know I can make recommendations that are in your best interest. 'Cause I know what's important to you. You've told me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really important relationship to have because,
It is.
yeah, it's like a coaching relationship and it's a long-term coaching relationship.
It, it
So,
is.
yeah.
And also, I mean, it becomes an intimate relationship too, because you
Hmm.
share a lot about you and what matters to you, what's important to you, and your whole financial situation. There's a lot you have to share. So you want to make sure you're comfortable with that person.
Hmm.
And then
Absolutely.
that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, that trust and rapport. It's
Yes.
like in coaching. Yes, absolutely. So, the life planning training that you did, you said it was more recently, right?
I did that training. Yes, it was it was 3 years ago. It
Okay.
started. I actually just, so I believe life planning is so valuable that I'm trying to help teach it. So I did it through the Kinder Institute of Life Planning. And I
Mm-hmm.
helped to teach a class of new people because like there's only so many people I can work with. But if I can help other advisors become life planners, then that's another way for me to pay it forward by helping them go and life plan others too. So
Okay.
I've been asking, there's a part of, so that I mentioned the vision. So the vision meeting, there's three questions that we ask. It's part of the process. The first one is basically, imagine that money was no object. You could do anything you wanted. What would you do and how would you live your life? And that's kind of a fun question, right? You can dream big, you can think about all these things, but then we start to rein it in and get more serious. The second question is this time you go to the doctor and you're given the unfortunate news that you have 5 to 10 years left to live. The good news is you're not ever going to feel sick, but the bad news is you don't know when you're going to go. And now money is part of the equation. So now it's what would you do? How would you live your life and what would you change? And then the third question is the one that's really hard because this time you go to the doctor and you get the unfortunate news that today is the day. And now it's not what would you do? Although some people try to answer it that way, right? They're like, I would go and spend time with my loved ones. I understand, but that's not the question. It's what did you not get to do? And who did you not get to be? That's really the heart of those questions because that's the one that really helps us identify those things that really matter that we want to try to do now so that we can avoid the regret. And I asked those questions before I was a life planner because I found them. I thought they were great questions and they did help me to get to know my clients, but I didn't know what to do with them. So the life planning training really helped me know what to do with them and put the whole process around it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's a really beautiful way to serve people in the financial realm. That's for sure. If we think on money, just the resource, it's not enough to move us, right? So we
Hmm.
need more. We need to put meaning into the resource.
Yes. I mean, a lot of people, we think of money as a tool, but it's not. It's not a grade. It's not an identity. It's not a scorecard. And I like to think of that we have four kinds of capital. It's not just about money. I say we have a team of capital. We have our time, our energy, our attention, and our money. And the reason I think of it that way is that you can exchange money for time. Like I think when we moved into the house that we live in now, I bought the tractor from the woman that owned the house before. I'm like, oh, I'm going to cut the grass and I'm going to save money and it's going to be great. Well, I would spend 3 hours. I wouldn't finish. And the only thing that I enjoyed about it was that one of my kids would sit on the tractor with me when I did it. And then my wife went and somebody would cut our grass for $40. And I knew it wasn't going to take him 3 hours and I didn't care. I'm like, it was 3 hours of my time. And that was $13 an hour. It took him half an hour. I found out later that the tractor I had really wasn't big enough. But $13 an hour, like I can do so much better things with that time than have one kid sit on a tractor with me. Please let him cut the grass. Right. So that's an example where we can trade our money for time. We can
Uh-huh.
also trade money to give us more energy because there's things that are energy draining. And sometimes we can have somebody else do those things that may enjoy them more too, right? It's not always about just
It's just a
it's
better
some
use of time.
correct because some things drain us, right? Like if you think about it, there's things that you love to do that you're good at and things that you don't like to do that you're not good at. Those things you don't like to do that you're not good at, they're energy draining.
Hmm.
And then the attention, we can also use our money to free up our attention or just the idea that we can use our time better. Like those things are all tied into together. And so if we think about it under that lens, I think it's a much better way to look at it because I used to say we try to align our money with our values, but now I like to think we try to align our team of capital with our values. We want to think about all those things. And that really gets just more towards thinking about using those resources on things that matter to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And one very important thing that just came to mind while listening to you speaking about that is some people think that they have to have a pile of money to be free. But actually, the truth is we can be free with whatever we have. It's
That's right.
just a matter of alignment, right?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of times too, we see things that other people have and think that we want them, but we may not. Like there's a great story. So one of my favorite books about this whole area of personal finance is by Morgan Housel called Psychology of Money. And I don't know if this particular story is in the book, but he tells this story. He says every once in a while he thinks he wants this fancy car. And so he'll go and he'll rent like a really expensive car. And he says, it's almost by the time I'm out of the lot that I realize I don't want this car. So owning it makes no sense for me. And it's just like when we think we want to retire and we say we want to go someplace, try it out first, because it might be that you just see somebody else. Like we get this tremendous FOMO, right? And we see somebody else with something and we picture ourselves there. We don't really want to be them. We just want to be in that position, right? We think we want that, but then when we try it out, we find out it's not important to us. So no matter where you are, whether you have a lot or a little or some or whatever, it's always finding those things that work for you within where you are. And that's better than lamenting what somebody else has that you doesn't. Think about making the best of what you got.
Yeah. It's just interesting because you gave an example of a person with a car. My son loves cars. And one day he asked me what my dream car is. And I said, well, actually, my dream is not to have a car. And that is what I want. I want to live in a place that I don't need a car. So
Yeah,
that is different for each person.
that's right.
I do have a friend that his dream car was an Audi 3 something. And when he told me that, I kept thinking, well, I'll stick with my dream of not having a car. It's so personal,
Yes.
but that's it. I think freedom looks different for each one of us. In aligning your values and your life planning with your finances is what can give you freedom, not having a pile of money.
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, excellent. Oh,
Yeah.
so good. Phil, if those beautiful women that are listening to us going through new beginnings, if they want to work with you, where they can find you.
So my website is apprisewealth.com. That's APPRISE wealth. So they can go to my website. They can schedule a free call. I don't ever charge anybody for initial consultations or anything until they become a client because we have to make sure it's the right relationship. So they can book a free call with me, or they can go to the contact and they can send me a message if they want to do that first. And you can find information about my fees on my website and all those things, all that too. At the end of the day, the reason I don't charge for anything until you become a client is I want to make sure it's the right relationship for you and for me.
Yeah, great. So I will have the links in the show notes so people can find you easily. Do you want to leave any final messages, or if there is something I haven't asked that you want to mention, just feel free.
Sure. Look, the bottom line is that some people are hesitant to want to work with an advisor because we talked about the different things that you have to share and all that. But if you're sick, you go to a doctor because they're specialized in whatever it is that you need help with when you're sick or you're injured or whatever the case may be. In some ways, anybody can do what I do. But in order to do it well, you have to have what I call kit. You have to have the knowledge, You have to have the interest. And not everybody is, and that's okay. And then we talked about time as being one of our source of capital. You have to have the time. So if this is not something that you like to do, or if you don't have the knowledge or the interest, go seek somebody out. And people ask me when. I think it's never too late. It's also never too early. It's whenever it's right for you. But the sooner you do it, the better, because there's lots of steps that we can take. I said I'm a CPA and I used to do tax work. So we do tax planning. And it's not about trying to cheat or anything like that. It's about trying to help you reduce how much you pay in taxes, not just this year, but over your lifetime. Like somebody might get really excited because they had a really low tax bill this year, but sometimes that's a wasted opportunity because there were other things that you could have done because there's really low tax brackets. You want to make sure that you fill those up. So there's lots of things that can be done. The only cost of a consultation with any advisor, and it could be me, it could be anybody. The only cost is a little bit of time and find out if it's something that makes sense for you.
Perfect. Oh, Phil, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the conversation.
Same here, Anna. Thank you for the time, and I appreciated the conversation as well. And just thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and want to know more about me and my work, the easiest way is to sign up for my newsletter. Every week, I craft good wellness information, recipes, and book recommendations with love and care just for you. It is rich and free. Find the sign up link in the show notes. See you in the next episode. Until then, remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Vista transcende, levita.